Hey YouTube, this is The Art of Prepping. Once again, I want to thank Jeremy at Bushcraft and Banjos for giving me this thought for this video. He may want to do his own video series on this particular topic. That's cool. I just wanted to do my own, have a few thoughts. I wouldn't call myself a Minuteman myself, but being prepared, I do have those contingencies. At least I might have those contingencies. You never know. You know, privacy is key here, right? So, you know, this particular Minuteman series, first of all, I want to clarify, it's not just for guys. Obviously, Minutemen is just a generic term. Women can be Minutemen. You know, it's just, you know, we don't have to worry about all the political correctness stuff. So we already know it's men and women are make up, you know, Minutemen. Because the whole term would be kind of flipped on its head if we called it Minute People. And so that's a little bit too far. The whole thing is being at the ready, prepared to help aid the family or community. And that's what I would kind of define it as, the Minuteman. And so, you know, a lot of people try to figure out, well, where did that come from? Well, it was kind of like back in the day, the old neighborhood watch, you know, person who volunteered. It may have been someone that was older. It may have been someone that... for whatever reason, they were on switch, you know, like they would switch out and kind of guard the community, because maybe it was before they even had police departments. A lot of people don't understand that we've never, you know, always had police departments. You know, police and law enforcement is still relatively a new thing for our country. It's not like it's always been like that. So we pretty much had our own first responders, neighborhood patrols, or neighborhood watch, however you want to call it, back in the day. And the Minuteman, even though it was more or less like variations between like self-policing and kind of like a militia type of, before, you know, the federalizing of the National Guard, you could call it that, because there's a lot of people that were in the militia, that, you know, the militia that also were a Minutemen. But they're also a type of first responder. Of course, back in the day, they didn't have like all this advanced knowledge and equipment to be what you would consider today's version of a first responder, like a medical first responder. But definitely a first responder in the sense that they could access, you know, with force if had to, because they were armed. You know, they would usually have like a musket or something, and typically, you know, maybe a Bowie blade or some type of blade, and maybe some other contingencies. And so they had some resources and some skills, and they probably pretty much knew the community pretty well. I would imagine that they would have ongoing dialogues, and they would converse with the locals, their neighbors in particular, and so they probably had different systems to alert the Minutemen of their need. It could be that they rang bells, maybe from a tower or from a church, or they might have had maybe different signaling through light. That the Minuteman would stay up, and they would be kind of observant, and they would see a certain lantern or something being lit in a certain location, which meant to them that there was a need for their services. So the Minutemen is it goes way back, and especially in the United States it does. So that's that. Now, in terms of in the modern day, what can a Minuteman do and not do? Well, first of all, you definitely need to alert law enforcement or fire department or whatever the local authority is of what the issue is. But a lot of times, as we know, it takes them sometimes a few minutes or even more to get there. In the meantime, someone could be killed or someone could be suffering greatly that doesn't need to be. So you need to get training. You need to have medical training. You need to have firearms training. You need to have the ability to understand how to suppress fire. And you also need to know some basic tactics and learn how to profile, not through racism or anything. I'm talking about profiling of, you know, criminal activity for all people. You know, and if you look at in the, you know, the anti-terrorist groups, you know, like in Israel, for example, they're one of the best profilers to spot someone, you know, that's doing deviant behavior. They have a lot of different techniques. And so that's the kind of profiling I'm talking about, is to kind of look for, you know, irregular behavior and activity in people. And so the pretty much, I think, in my opinion, the top 4 categories a Minuteman would be needed would be for like a house fire or any kind of fire. It could be for a barn burning down, or you need someone to help suppress a fire, and also maybe to extract and remove people from the fire. So that would be a big one. The next one would be medical. In a medical emergency, maybe you just need someone to do CPR or put pressure on a wound site, or whatever it is, maybe to dislodge something in someone's mouth and do the Heimlich maneuver. Medical is big. The third one is maybe you're called to an armed robbery, kidnapping, or home invasion. Now, this is very tricky. You would have to have special training, and you would definitely want to, at the same time with all this, identify yourself with law enforcement ahead of time. Make sure that they know you, introduce yourself, and maybe go to a lot of their functions locally. And of course, in all of this, you'd also want to join, if you do have a neighborhood watch in your area, you'd want to join that and be a part of that. I mean, people should know you, and you should not be a stranger, just showing up. A lot of police departments will give special armbands or have a colored strip to put on your person if you're a first responder and or a neighborhood watch, so they can identify you quicker when they arrive on the scene, so they don't just shoot you by accident, or they don't consider you a higher threat than you really are. So armed robbery, kidnapping, and home invasion, they're really nasty things. I probably try not to get too involved with those. But once again, if they're just randomly shooting the criminal, you may have to just put that target down. Every situation is different, and I cannot give you that advice, but you'd have to make that decision when you're there. And lastly, the fourth one would be local neighborhood riots, gang activities, that gang mentality, that thug mentality. If you had a large group of people, especially if you lived in an urban area or maybe some suburban areas, a group of people, a gang could overtake a neighborhood. If you have 50 to 100, kids, teenagers, or young adults, they can thrash and destroy cars, deface homes, if not break into homes, just totally vandalize. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. And so that's going to be a major concern. A small group of Minutemen could really, push them off, push them back. And that kind of goes into the next category that we'll be talking about in part 2, is of some of the different tactics to deal with these people. And then part 3 will go through the equipment list of what you should probably have on your loadout and on your person. And this also includes like non-lethal types of different devices so you don't have to go to lethal force every time, lethal force. So as with that though, thanks for listening. Stay tuned to part 2.